The morning sun shone bright through the huge glass dome of the Galactic Council Station. Kim Dae-ho stood at his office window watching ships from 100 different worlds dock at the massive space station that orbited the star. Kepler 442 some. Ships looked like giant metal birds, others were round like bubbles, and a few looked like floating crystals, but they all came here for the same reason. Dae-ho was 43 years old and had been working as humanity's chief diplomat for 20 years. He was not a tall man, but he had kind eyes and a calm voice that made even the angriest alien species stop and listen. When he walked through the station corridors, other diplomats would nod respectfully because everyone knew he was the one who had changed how the galaxy saw humans 20 years ago. When humans first joined the Galactic Council, most alien species were afraid of them. They had heard stories about the violent wars humans fought on Earth, about how they destroyed their own environment and killed their own kind. Many aliens called humans the violent primates and expected them to cause trouble in the peaceful galaxy, but Dae-ho had spent years proving them wrong. His office was simple, with a wooden desk from Earth and pictures of his family on the walls. He kept fresh flowers in a vase because he believed beautiful things help people think peaceful thoughts. The walls were covered with agreements and peace treaties he had helped create. Each document represented months or years of careful talking and patient listening. Park So-min knocked on his door before entering. She was 28 years old and had been working as his assistant for 5 years. She was very smart and could speak 12 different alien languages fluently. She also had a good sense of humor, which helped during the long, boring meetings that diplomats had to attend. "Good morning, sir," she said, carrying a tablet with the day's schedule. "The Terran mining representatives want to discuss their border dispute with the Kristans again, and the Aviran trade delegation is arriving this afternoon." Dae-ho smiled. The Terrans were rock-like beings who lived underground and mined precious metals. The Kristans were made of living crystal and needed those same metals to grow their cities. It was the kind of problem that could start a war if handled badly, but Dae-ho had been working with both sides for months to find a solution that would make everyone happy. "What about the medical station project?" he asked. Our Lee Jin-woo sent his final report, So-min replied. "The new research facility at Harmony Station will be ready next month. Scientists from 23 different species will work there together to find cures for diseases that affect all our worlds." This made Dae-ho feel proud. The medical station had been his idea 2 years ago. Many species had diseases that their own doctors could not cure, but working together, they could help each other. It was exactly the kind of cooperation he had been trying to build. The council chambers were the most beautiful part of the station. The ceiling was made of transparent material that let in natural sunlight, and the walls curved gracefully upward, creating a sense of openness and peace. Representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in comfortable chairs arranged in a large circle so everyone could see each other as equals today. The chamber was buzzing with activity. The bird-like Avrans were preening their bright, colorful feathers while discussing trade routes with the plant-like Verdans, who swayed gently as they talked. The Terrans sat very still like living statues, while the quick-moving skippers darted between chairs, carrying messages and documents. Dae-ho took his place at the human section of the chamber and looked around at all the different species working together peacefully. It had taken so much effort to build this trust, so many careful conversations and patient explanations. When humans first arrived, many species would not even sit in the same room with them. He remembered his first day as a diplomat when Ambassador Kree of the Avrans had refused to shake his hand because she was afraid humans were too violent to touch, but over the years he had proven that humans could be trusted. Yesterday, that same ambassador had invited him to her daughter's wedding ceremony. The main business today was approving new trade agreements between the core worlds and the outer rim colonies. It was boring work, but important because fair trade meant fewer conflicts and more prosperity for everyone. Dae-ho listened carefully as each representative spoke, making sure everyone felt heard and respected. During the lunch break, he walked through the station's market district, where beings from across the galaxy bought and sold everything from exotic foods to beautiful artwork. Human merchants sold earth, coffee, and chocolate, which had become very popular, while alien traders offered technologies and materials that Earth had never seen. A young Aviran child ran up to him, her bright blue feathers shining in the artificial sunlight. She held up a small drawing she had made of the council station with stick figures representing different species all holding hands for the peaceman, she chirped in broken Standard Galactic before running back to her Parenzo Min, who had been walking beside him, smiled. That never gets old, does it, Cerno Deho replied, watching the child rejoin her family. It reminds me why we do this work. They stopped at a small cafe run by a Terran family who had left their underground cities to experience life among the stars. The rock-skinned father served them tea made from minerals that tasted like starlight, while his children played with human toys that their parents had bought from Earth merchants. This is what peace looks like, Deho thought. Families from different worlds living together, children playing together, species that were once enemies sharing meals and stories. But in the darker sections of the station where few people went, representatives from the Hegemony Empire were meeting in secret rooms. The Hegemony was an ancient race that had once ruled much of the galaxy through fear and violence for decades. They had been forced to follow the Council's rules, but they had never forgotten their old ways. Overlord Vex, the leader of the Hegemony delegation, was a terrifying figure with gray skin stretched over sharp bones and eyes that glowed red in the dark. He wore armor decorated with the skulls of his enemies, and when he spoke his voice sounded like grinding metal. The other species have grown weak, he told his officers. They waste time talking about peace and cooperation while we prepare for war. They think the galaxy belongs to everyone, but we know the truth. Only the strong deserve to rule. His officers nodded in agreement. They had been planning this moment for years, building secret weapons and gathering intelligence on every species in the Council. They knew which worlds were poorly defended, which species were too peaceful to fight back, and which attacks would cause the most fear. But they made one critical mistake. They thought humans were weak because they chose peace. They had never bothered to learn about human history or ask why a species that had once been so violent suddenly became so diplomatic. They assumed that choosing peace meant being unable to fight that night. As Deho worked late in his office reviewing proposals for new humanitarian aid programs, he had no idea that Hegemony ships were already moving through space toward their first targets. He was focused on plans to help refugee families and provide medical supplies to worlds that needed them. So Min had gone home to her small apartment where she was video calling her parents on Earth. Her mother was showing her the garden where she grew vegetables while her father complained about the weather. Everything seemed normal and peaceful. Neither of them knew that tomorrow would change everything. The galaxy that had known peace for 50 years was about to face its greatest test. And humanity, the species that had worked so hard to be seen as peaceful, was about to remember what they had once been. The beautiful council station continued to orbit its star, carrying representatives from hundreds of worlds who believed in cooperation and peace. But in the darkness of space, predators were moving, and soon everyone would learn that peace was not the same as weakness. The calm before the storm was ending. The first explosion woke Deho from his sleep at 3 in the morning. Station time emergency alarms were screaming through the corridors and red lights were flashing everywhere. He jumped out of bed and ran to his office where the main communication screen was already showing terrible images. 3 peaceful worlds were under attack at the same time. Harmony Station, where scientists worked together to cure diseases, was being torn apart by massive black warships. The farming world of New Eden, where families grew food for half the galaxy, was burning under orbital bombardment. And the beautiful Aviran homeworld with its crystal cities was being shattered by energy. Wapanso Min burst through his office door, still in her sleeping clothes, her face white with shock and fear. Sir, she gasped, we are getting distress calls from everywhere. The Hegemony fleet appeared without warning. They are not attacking military targets, they are killing civilians. On the main screen, Deho watched in horror as Harmony Station exploded. The medical research facility where his old friend Dr. Li Jinwu worked became a ball of fire and twisted metal. Hundreds of scientists from 20 different species died in seconds, people who had dedicated their lives to healing others. The images from New Eden were even worse. Hegemony soldiers in black armor were landing on the farming world where peaceful colonists had no weapons to defend themselves. The aliens were burning the crop fields that fed billions of people across the galaxy. They were rounding up farmers and their families, herding them into prison camps like animals. Children were screaming as they were separated from their parents. Old farmers who had spent their entire lives growing food to feed the galaxy were being dragged away at gunpoint. The hegemony. Soldiers were not just conquering, they were being deliberately cruel, enjoying the fear and pain they were causing. But the worst images came from the Aviran homeworld. The bird-like people had built their cities from living crystal that had taken centuries to grow. The structures were works of art that sparkled in the sunlight. But now they were being destroyed by orbital weapons. The Avirans tried to escape flying on their colorful wings, but the hegemony ships hunted them with targeting systems. Millions of innocent people were dying. Their only crime was being different from the hegemony, being peaceful instead of violent, being builders instead of destroyers. Deho felt something cold and hard forming in his chest as he watched species he had worked with for years being slaughtered. "Get me a direct communication link to Overlord." "Vex," he ordered, his voice steady despite the rage building inside him. "Do it now." When the transmission connected, the alien leader's face filled the screen. Vex looked like a nightmare made real, with gray skin stretched tight over sharp bones, glowing red eyes and teeth like broken glass. He wore his armor covered in skulls. And when he smiled, it was the smile of a predator who enjoyed killing. "Ah, the human diplomat," Vex said, his voice like grinding metal. "I was hoping you would call. Are you ready to surrender your pathetic council to its rightful masters? Stop the attacks immediately," Deho said quietly. "These are innocent civilians. They have done nothing to harm you." Vex laughed, a sound like breaking bones. "Innocent? They are weak, and the weak deserve to be ruled by the strong. But I am not unreasonable. Human, surrender now, and I will allow some of them to live as our slaves. Refuse, and I will burn every world that has ever shown kindness to your species. You are making a terrible mistake," Deho warned, though his diplomatic training kept his voice level. "The council will respond to this aggression with what?" Vex sneered, harsh words, angry letters. "I have studied your species, human. You talk of peace, but you are predators pretending to be prey. The difference is I am honest about what I am. You hide behind lies about cooperation and friendship." The transmission ended, leaving Deho staring at a black screen. Around him, the council chamber was in chaos. Alien representatives were shouting in dozens of languages, demanding action, calling for evacuation. Some were crying for their lost people, others were paralyzed with fear. The Terran representative, his rock-like skin cracked with grief, stood up. "What can we do? Our ships are cargo vessels and research craft. We have no weapons that can match theirs. We are not warriors." An Aviran diplomat, her bright feathers now dull with sorrow, spoke through her tears. "My people are dying. My homeworld is burning. What hope do we have against such monsters?" But Deho stood perfectly still in the center of the chaos. His hands were clenched into fists, and something had changed in his eyes. The gentle diplomat who had spent 20 years building peace was transforming into something else, something dangerous. Min approached him carefully. "Sir, what are your orders?" When Deho turned to look at her, she stepped back. The warm, kind eyes she knew were gone, replaced by something cold and calculating. It was like looking at a completely different person. "Get me Admiral Choi Hyun-soo," Deho said quietly. "Tell him the diplomatic phase is over. Tell him it's time to wake up humanity." The council chamber fell silent. Everyone knew about Admiral Hyun-soo, though few had ever seen him. He commanded the human fleet from secret bases hidden throughout the galaxy, while Deho had been building peace. The Admiral had been preparing for war. While we wait for the Admiral, Deho continued, addressing the terrified alien representatives. "I want you all to understand something about humanity. We did not join this council because we were weak. We joined because we were tired of being what we used to be." The aliens looked confused. They had always seen humans as peaceful diplomats who preferred talking to fighting. Some had heard rumors about humanity's violent past, but they had dismissed them as ancient history for most of our species' existence. Deho explained, "Humans were warriors. We fought each other, we fought our environment, we fought everything that challenged us. We were very, very good at it. But we grew tired of the killing, tired of the destruction, so we chose a different path. We chose peace." His voice grew colder. "But peace is not the same as weakness. Peace is a choice, and when someone forces us to make a different choice, when someone hurts our friends and threatens our family, we remember what we used to be." Min activated the chamber's main display, and images appeared that made the alien representatives gasp. Human warships, sleek and deadly, were emerging from hidden bases throughout the galaxy. The fleet was massive, far larger than anyone had imagined. We have been protecting you, Deho said, not just with words but with strength you never saw. We hoped you would never need to see it. We hoped the galaxy had grown beyond the need for such things, but the hegemony has made that impossible. The Aviran representative, her voice shaking, asked, "What will you do to them?" Deho smiled, but it was nothing like the warm expression the council was used to seeing. It was the smile of a predator who had found prey. "We are going to remind the hegemony why the rest of the galaxy used to fear Earth, and we are going to make sure they never hurt anyone again." The transformation was complete. The diplomat had become something else entirely, and the galaxy was about to learn what humans were really capable of when their friends were threatened. Admiral Choi Haen-soo had been waiting for this call for 20 years. He was 62 years old with gray hair and scars on his hands from his days as a fighter pilot. His office was hidden deep inside an asteroid base far from the peaceful worlds where diplomats made their pretty speeches. The walls were covered with tactical maps and weapon specifications. The admiral said when the secure transmission connected. "I saw the reports. How bad is it? 3 worlds attacked simultaneously. Millions of civilians dead. They targeted hospitals, schools, and farms specifically." Deho's voice was different now, harder than anyone in the council had ever heard it. "They think we are weak because we chose peace." And now, Hyun-soo asked, though he already knew the answer. "Now we show them what we really are." The admiral smiled grimly. He had spent 2 decades building a fleet in secret, while the galaxy believed humans were peaceful diplomats. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier had been prepared for this moment, the day when talking would not be enough. "I have been tracking hegemony movements for months," he said. "We know where their ships are, where their bases are, and most importantly, where their homeworld is. My crews have been training for this war since the day we joined the council. What do you need from me?" "Permission to stop pretending we are harmless." Deho closed his eyes for a moment. 20 years of careful diplomacy, of convincing the galaxy that humans were peaceful, was about to end. But when he opened them again, his decision was clear. "You have it, Admiral, but I want them to understand something. This is not about conquest or territory. This is about justice. They killed innocent people. They broke the peace. Make sure they never do it again." "Understood, sir. We will be ready in 6 hours." While the admiral prepared his fleet, Deho called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. The great chamber was packed with representatives from hundreds of worlds, all of them afraid and angry. Some were crying for their lost people, others were demanding evacuation. A few were even suggesting surrender to save their own world's friends. Deho began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "You have all seen what the hegemony has done. They have murdered civilians, destroyed peaceful worlds, and shattered the peace we have all worked so hard to build." A Terran representative, his rock-like skin cracked with grief, stood up. "What can we do? Our ships are cargo vessels and research craft. We have no weapons that can match theirs. We are not soldiers." "You do not need weapons," Deho replied. "You need to understand something about humanity. We did not join this council because we were weak. We joined because we were tired of being what we used to." Beatty Chamber fell silent. Many of the aliens had heard whispers about humanity's violent past, but they had dismissed them as myths or ancient history. Now they were beginning to realize those stories might be true. For most of our history, Deho continued, humans were warriors. We fought each other, we fought our environment, we fought everything that challenged us. We were very good at it, perhaps too good, but we grew tired of the killing, tired of the destruction. So we chose a different path. We chose peace. His voice grew colder, but peace is not the same as weakness. Peace is a choice, and when someone forces us to make a different choice, when someone hurts our friends and threatens our family, we remember what we used to. Beso Min, standing beside him, activated the chamber's main display. Images appeared of human warships, sleek and deadly, emerging from hidden bases throughout the galaxy. The alien representatives gasped as they saw the true size of humanity's fleet. "We have been protecting you," Deho said, "not just with words, but with strength you never saw. We hoped you would never need to see it. We hoped the galaxy had grown beyond the need for such things. But the hegemony has forced our hand." The ships on the screen were unlike anything the Council species had ever built. They were designed for one purpose only: war. Each vessel was a masterpiece of destructive capability, built by a species that had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing a Naviran representative, her feathers dim with grief for her dead people, spoke up. What will you do to them? Hosea's smile was nothing like the warm expression the council was used to seeing. It was cold and dangerous, like a blade being drawn from its sheath. We are going to remind the hegemony why the rest of the galaxy used to fear Earth, and we are going to make sure they never hurt anyone again. The transformation was complete. The diplomat had become something else entirely, and the representatives could see it in his eyes. They were no longer looking at a peaceful negotiator. They were looking at a predator who had found prey. But we will not become monsters like them, Deho continued. We will not target innocent civilians. We will not destroy for the sake of destruction. We will be precise. We will be efficient, and we will be absolutely ruthless with those who chose to break the peace as if summoned by his words. Admiral Hyansu appeared on the main screen. His face was hard as stone, and his eyes held the same cold fire as Deho's fleet is ready. He reported all ships are in position and awaiting orders. The alien representatives stared at the screen in amazement. In just 6 hours, the humans had mobilized a war fleet that dwarfed anything the Council had ever assembled. Ships that had been hidden for decades were now moving through space like a pack of hunting wolves. How long have you been preparing for this? And Kristen Delegate asked, his crystal body flickering with nervous energy. Since the day we joined the Council, Deho replied. We hoped this day would never come. We worked to make sure it would not come, but we were ready just in case. The truth was becoming clear to everyone in the chamber. Humanity had not abandoned their warrior nature. When they chose peace, they had simply controlled it, channeled it into protection rather than conquest. But now that control was being released. Admiral, begin Operation Justice, Deho ordered. The screen showed human ships moving through space with deadly grace. They did not charge recklessly at their enemies. Instead, they moved with the precision of surgeons and the patience of hunters. The hegemony had made the mistake of thinking that choosing peace meant being unable to fight. They were about to learn the difference between a species that could not fight and a species that chose not to fight, and that lesson would be written in fire across the stars. The galaxy held its breath as humanity went to war, not for conquest but for justice. The peaceful diplomats had revealed their true nature, and the universe would never be the same again. The human fleet moved through space like a pack of wolves that had caught the scent of prey. Admiral Hyansu commanded from the bridge of the Indomitable, a massive battleship that had been hidden in the asteroid belt for decades. Around him, his officers worked with quiet efficiency. These were not the peaceful humans the galaxy knew. These were soldiers, warriors trained for a war they had hoped would never come. Captain Yang Minho, the admiral's tactical officer, studied the enemy positions. On his screen, he was 35 years old, with intense eyes and steady hands, the kind of person who could calculate the destruction of an entire fleet. While eating breakfast, sir, we have confirmed positions on 12 hegemony battle groups, he reported. They are spread across the attack systems, probably expecting us to defend our territory. They are thinking like conquerors, Hyansu replied. They expect us to cower and protect what we have. They do not understand that we are hunters now. The first target was a hegemony supply convoy heading toward New Eden. The alien ships were massive, ugly things designed to carry troops and weapons to oppress innocent people. They moved slowly, confident in their superiority, protected by only a handful of escort vessels. Commander Park Ji-hai led the attack. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, with a fierce smile and eyes like laser beams. She commanded a squadron of stealth fighters that could appear and disappear like ghosts using technology the hegemony had never seen before. Remember, she told her pilots over the communication system, these are the same ships that bombed civilian targets. These are the weapons they used to kill innocent families. No mercy. The attack was over in minutes. Human fighters appeared from nowhere, their weapons cutting through hegemony shields like they were made of paper. The convoy's escort ships barely had time to raise their defenses before they were destroyed. The supply ships loaded with weapons meant to oppress innocent people became expanding balls of fire against the stars. But the real shock came when the hegemony tried to send reinforcements. Their fastest ships, the ones that had seemed unstoppable just days before, found themselves being hunted by something even faster. Human vessels appeared behind them, beside them, above them, moving with impossible speed and precision. On The Hegemony flagship Overlord Vex stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Red dots representing destroyed ships were disappearing faster than his officers could count them. His bridge crew, normally confident and cruel, were now looking around with fear in their eyes. How are they doing this? He demanded. Our intelligence said humans were peaceful. Farmers and diplomats, his tactical officer, a scarred veteran of dozens of campaigns, looked up from his screen with terror in his voice. Sir, they are not fighting like any species we have encountered. They are not trying to hold territory or protect positions. They are hunting us. The truth was becoming clear. Humanity had spent 20 years studying every species in the galaxy, learning their tactics, their weaknesses, their patterns. But more than that, they had been preparing while other species built ships for exploration or trade. Humans had built ships for war, while other species trained their crews for peaceful missions. Humans had trained theirs for battle. Captain Kim Tae-young, commander of the destroyer Vengeance, demonstrated this perfectly. His ship was smaller than the Hegemony vessels, but it moved like a living thing, dodging enemy fire while delivering precise strikes to weak points. His crew worked in perfect harmony, each person knowing exactly what to do without needing orders. Target their engine clusters. Tae-young ordered, "We are not here to destroy everything. We are here to send a message." The Hegemony ships found themselves crippled, unable to move or fight back, drifting helplessly while human vessels surrounded them like sharks circling wounded prey. Then came the transmissions, broadcast on all frequencies so every Hegemony ship in the area could hear. "This is Admiral Choi Hyun-soo of the Human Defense Fleet." The admiral's voice echoed through space. "You attacked innocent civilians. You broke the peace. You made a choice, and now you face the consequences. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to the laws of war. Continue to resist, and you will be destroyed." Some Hegemony ships tried to fight. They were eliminated quickly and efficiently, their crews never understanding how they had been defeated so easily. Others attempted to flee. They were hunted down and captured, their crews taken prisoner. A few tried to attack more civilian targets. Thinking they could use innocents as shields, they discovered that humans had anticipated this tactic and had already evacuated the threatened worlds. Transport ships had appeared at every civilian colony and space station, moving people to safety. With an efficiency that shocked even the Council observers, within hours, the Hegemony forces that had seemed so powerful were scattered and broken. Their supply lines were cut, their reinforcements were destroyed, and their remaining ships were being hunted through space by an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move. But the humans were not finished. They had learned something important about their enemy, something that would determine the next phase of the war. The Hegemony was not just cruel, they were cowards. They attacked civilians because they were easy targets. They bullied the weak because they were afraid of the strong. Commander Lee Sun-hee, who led the Human Intelligence Division, had been studying Hegemony communications since the attacks began. She was a quiet woman who preferred computers to people, but she had a talent for understanding enemy psychology. "Admiral," she reported over the secure channel, "I have been analyzing their transmissions and tactical patterns. They are not just retreating, they are running. The moment they face real resistance, they collapse." What does that tell us? It tells us they have never fought a real war. They have spent so long bullying defenseless civilians that they do not know how to fight actual soldiers. They are used to their enemies surrendering immediately. Then we make sure they understand what real war looks like. The human fleet regrouped and prepared for the next phase of their campaign. They had scattered the Hegemony forces, but the real target was still waiting, the enemy homeworld, where Overlord Vex had retreated with the remnants of his fleet. But first they needed to deal with the Hegemony installations throughout the galaxy. The aliens had built fortress worlds and military bases that supplied their forces. These had to be eliminated before the final assault could begin. The attack on the first fortress world showed the galaxy what human warfare really looked like. The base was heavily defended with orbital weapons, energy shields, and a fleet of defensive ships, but the humans did not charge at the defenses or try to break through by force. Instead, they moved with intelligence and precision. Commander Oh Da-young led a team of special forces soldiers who infiltrated the base while the fleet kept the defenders busy. Her team moved through the installation like ghosts, disabling key systems and gathering intelligence. When the main assault began, the defenders found their weapons turning Against them, their shields failing at crucial moments and their communications being jammed by systems they could not detect or stop. The fortress fell in hours, not days. This pattern repeated across the galaxy hegemony bases that had seemed impregnable. Or falling one by one, the aliens who had terrorized innocent civilians for so long were now discovering what it felt like to be hunted, and at the center of it all, Admiral Hyansu and his fleet moved steadily toward their ultimate target, the hegemony homeworld, where the final battle would determine the fate of the galaxy. The hunt was far from over. The hegemony homeworld was a fortress planet that had never known defeat for 1,000 years. It had been the center of their empire. A dark world covered in military installations and weapon factories, the planet was surrounded by massive orbital defense stations that bristled with enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. Overlord Vex had retreated there, with the remnants of his forces, confident that even the surprisingly dangerous humans could not break through its defenses. The planet was protected by energy shields that could deflect the strongest attacks, and a defensive fleet that outnumbered the human forces 3-1. Vex stood in his command center, a vast chamber carved deep into the planet's surface, watching his defenses prepare for the coming battle through the reinforced windows. He could see the orbital stations positioning themselves and the defensive fleet forming battle lines. Let them come, he snarled to his officers. They may have caught us by surprise in open space, but this is our home. This is where we make our final stand. No force in the galaxy has ever broken through these defenses. But when the human fleet arrived at the edge of the system, they did something unexpected. They did not attack. Instead, they took positions around the planet and began broadcasting a message. It was not directed at the hegemony military. It was directed at the civilians living on the planet's surface. Hosea face appeared on every screen throughout the planet, his voice speaking in the hegemony language. People of the hegemony empire, your leaders have committed terrible crimes against innocent beings throughout the galaxy. They have broken the peace and brought this war to your doorstep. The message continued. But it was not a threat, it was an offer. Any civilian who wanted to leave the planet would be given safe passage. Any soldier who laid down their weapons would be treated fairly according to the laws of war. Any leader who surrendered would face justice, not execution. This is not about conquest, Deho explained. We are not here to destroy your people or take your worlds. We are here to stop those who attack innocent civilians. We will not become the monsters your leaders are. We will not target families or children, but we will stop those who do. Vex watched in fury as thousands of his people began accepting the human offer. Transport ships appeared at civilian spaceports throughout the planet, loading families and non-combatants. Even some of his soldiers began abandoning their posts, choosing human mercy over hegemony brutality. Cowards, Vex screamed at his remaining officers. I will kill them all myself. How dare they abandon their empire for these weak humans? His rage turned to fear when Admiral Hyansu's voice cut through the communications systems. Overlord Vex, this is your final warning. Surrender now, and you will face trial for your crimes. Continue to resist, and we will remove you from power permanently. You think you can threaten me? Vex replied, his voice shaking with anger. I have the strongest defenses in the galaxy. I have weapons that can destroy your entire fleet. No, came the Admiral's quiet response. You have the defenses. We allowed you to keep the attack when it came. Was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships did not charge at the orbital defenses or try to break through by force. Instead, they moved with surgical precision, exploiting weaknesses that the hegemony did not even know existed. Commander Li Sun-He led the electronic warfare assault. Her team had spent years studying hegemony technology, and they knew exactly how to turn their weapons against them. From her command ship, she directed a cyber attack that infiltrated every computer system on the planet. Remember, she told her operators, we are not here to massacre them, we are here to stop them. Precision, not destruction. The orbital defense stations began firing on each other as their targeting systems were overridden by human computer viruses. The massive energy shields protecting the planet flickered and died as their control systems fell to cyber attacks. The defensive fleet found their ships unable to move, their engines shut down by programs they could not detect or stop. Within hours, the planet's defenses were neutralized, but the humans still did not attack the surface. Instead, they sent a final message to Vex: your weapons are gone, your shields are down, your fleet is disabled, you have one choice left: surrender. Or watch us demonstrate what happens when humans stop being diplomatic. Vex, surrounded by his most loyal guards in his underground command. Bunker laughed bitterly. You think you have won? I still have weapons you have not seen. I still have power. He was wrong. Captain Oh Da-young and her team of special forces soldiers had been moving through the planet's underground tunnel systems for hours. They had studied the layout of every building, mapped every corridor, and identified every possible escape route. The team moved like ghosts through the darkness, their advanced equipment allowing them to see in complete blackness and move without making a sound. They reached Vex's command center just as he was preparing to activate a doomsday weapon that would destroy his own planet rather than let it fall to the human. Step away from the controls. Da-young ordered her weapon, trained on the Overlord. Vex turned to face her, his glowing red eyes blazing with hatred and madness. You cannot stop what I am. Even if you kill me, others will take my place. The strong will always rule the weak. This is the natural order of the universe. You are not strong, Young replied calmly. You are afraid. You attack civilians because you are too weak to fight. Real soldiers, you hide behind weapons because you are too weak to face the consequences of your actions. And now you want to murder your own people because you are too weak to admit defeat. I am the ruler of an empire. You were the ruler of bullies and cowards. Now you are just a prisoner. The arrest of Overlord Vex marked the end of organized resistance, but the work was far from over. The human fleet had to secure the planet, evacuate remaining civilians, and begin the process of bringing war criminals to justice. Admiral Hyansu stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching transport ships carry refugees to safety. The planet below was no longer a fortress of terror, it was becoming a symbol of justice. Sir, Captain Yang Minho reported. The last of the hegemony leadership has been captured. The planet is secure. Good, Hyansu replied. Now comes the hard part. We have to help them build something better. The war was over, but the real challenge was just beginning. The galaxy was watching to see what humanity would do with victory, whether they would become conquerors like the hegemony or something different, something better. The answer would determine the future of every species in the galaxy. The trial of Overlord Vex took place 6 months after his capture in the same council chamber where Daeho had once worked to build peace. The difference now was that everyone in the galaxy knew what humans were capable of when that peace was broken. The chamber was packed with representatives from hundreds of worlds, all watching as justice was finally served. Stood in the defendant's dock, no longer the terrifying Overlord, but a defeated war criminal. Around him sat judges from dozens of species, including humans, Avrans, Terrans, and even some former hegemony citizens who had chosen to join the galactic community. Daeho served as the chief prosecutor, presenting evidence of the hegemony's crimes. He spoke calmly and clearly, just as he had during his years as a diplomat, but now his words carried the weight of justice rather than hope. The defendant stands accused of ordering the deaths of millions of innocent civilians. Daeho began. He destroyed medical facilities that healed the sick, burned food supplies that fed the hungry, and targeted non-combatants specifically because they were defenseless. These are not the actions of a warrior or a leader. These are the actions of a terrorist. The trial lasted for weeks with survivors from the attacked worlds testifying about what they had endured. Dr. Sao Hyunju, who had escaped from Harmony Station, described watching her research colleagues die as they tried to save patients. Her voice broke as she spoke of the children who had been killed in the hospital wards. Farmer Kim Dong-woo from New Eden told of crops that had fed billions being burned just to cause suffering. He spoke of families torn apart and elders killed for no reason other than cruelty. The entire chamber was silent as he described the horror, but perhaps the most powerful testimony came from former hegemony soldiers who had surrendered to human forces. They spoke of being ordered to kill civilians, of being punished for showing mercy, of living in a society that celebrated cruelty and rewarded violence. We thought we were strong, one soldier testified, his voice filled with shame. But we were just afraid of being weak, afraid of being different, afraid of admitting we were wrong. The humans showed us what real strength looks like. When it came time for Vex to speak in his own defense, he was completely unrepentant. I did what I had to do to preserve my people's strength, he declared, his voice still filled with hatred. In a universe of Predators only the strongest survive. You are wrong, Deho replied quietly. In a universe of predators, the survivors are those who learn to work together. The hegemony was strong individually, but the galaxy is stronger together. That is why you lost. The verdict was unanimous, guilty on all charges. But the sentence reflected the new humanity that had emerged from the war. Vex would spend the rest of his life in prison, but he would not be executed. Instead, he would be forced to help rebuild the worlds he had destroyed, to work alongside the species he had tried to dominate. Justice is not about revenge, Deho explained to the packed courtroom. It is about making sure the crimes cannot be repeated. It is about healing what was broken and building something better. The real work began after the trial. The former hegemony worlds needed new governments, new leaders, new ways of thinking. Admiral Hyansu worked with local resistance groups to establish democratic councils that would represent all citizens equally. Captain Yang Minho helped train new defense forces that would protect rather than oppress. Commander Park Ji-hai led humanitarian missions to rebuild the destroyed worlds. Her squadrons now carried medical supplies and construction equipment instead of weapons. She worked with refugee families to help them return to their homes and rebuild their lives. But perhaps the most important change was in how the galaxy viewed humanity. The other species had learned that humans were not just peaceful diplomats or skilled warriors. They were both, and they could choose which they needed to be depending on what the situation required. We made a choice 50 years ago, Deho explained to the council during a memorial service for the war's victims. We chose to be better than our history. We chose peace over war, cooperation over conquest, building over destroying. That choice did not make us weak. It made us stronger. He paused, looking out at the representatives of hundreds of worlds. But when someone threatens our friends, when someone breaks the peace we have all worked to build, we remember that we still have choices. We chose to be diplomats, we chose to be peacemakers, but we can also choose to be protectors. The memorial service ended with the lighting of a new monument, a crystal structure that would burn with eternal flame in memory of those who had died in the war. Representatives from every species contributed a small flame symbolizing their commitment to the new peace. As the ceremony concluded, Somin approached Deho. She had been promoted to deputy ambassador, recognition of her role in coordinating the war effort and helping to rebuild the damaged worlds. Sir, she said, the former hegemony systems are requesting membership in the council. They want to be part of the galactic community. Deho smiled, and for the first time in months, it was the warm smile of a diplomat rather than the cold expression of a prosecutor. Of course they do. Everyone deserves a chance to choose peace, even former enemies, and if they choose war again, then we will remind them why that is a bad choice. The galaxy was at peace again, but it was a different peace than before. It was a peace protected by strength, guided by wisdom, and built on the understanding that sometimes the greatest act of love is the willingness to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. Council Station continued to orbit its star, but now it was protected by human warships that remained visible in the sky as a reminder that peace had guardians. The beautiful chamber where diplomats met was the same, but everyone who entered knew that the gentle humans who spoke of cooperation and friendship were also the warriors who had defeated the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. Children from dozens of species played together in the station's parks just as they had before. But now their parents told them stories of the humans who had fought to protect them, stories of diplomats who became warriors when evil threatened the innocent, and at the center of it all, humanity continued to serve as both builders and guardians. Proof that a species could choose to be both peaceful and powerful, both kind and dangerous, both diplomats and protectors. The hegemony had shattered peace, but humanity had forged something stronger in its place. A peace that could defend itself, a peace that would endure, because it was protected by those who understood that sometimes you must fight for what you love. The galaxy was safe, and it would remain safe as long as humanity remembered both sides of their nature, the diplomat and the warrior, the peacemaker and the protector.